presentation. The point was going to be more helpful.
Yeah, one more slide. Yeah, there we go.
Sorry about that.
Right. Okay, so these are some of the benefits that we heard from other cities, such that trees can help shade in the summer and shield from winds in the winter, which definitely helps with energy costs. And green spaces also play an important role in mental health and physical health as well. And trees absorb carbon dioxide from the air, which helps mitigate the effects from climate change. And finally, Tree City USA itself can increase public awareness of the many benefits of environmental forestry practices and urban forestry practices. Next, please. So some statistics to back this up, that trees help absorb the sound of traffic in urban areas by 40%, according to the Arbor Day Foundation. And neighborhoods with trees are 7 to 9 degrees cooler on average than neighborhoods without trees, which also helps with the next one that says that trees can reduce energy costs by up to 25%, as mentioned before, by shading in the summer and shielding from winter winds in the winter.
Thanks. And here's a map of the South Bay, and the red pins represent our neighbors that are part of the Tree City USA program. And there's Los Altos on the left-hand side with a green arrow. So if we join the program, we're excited to join our neighbors and the South Bay. And next, on to how cities have benefited. So from the people we emailed, here are some notable responses. They were all overwhelmingly positive feedback. And yeah, it was 49 responses that we received. And yeah. So starting off with Dublin, California, it's our East Bay neighbor. They've been part of the Tree City USA program for 33 years. And here is a quote from Debbie Bell, the Public Works Manager. She said, "We find it a helpful initiative because we are able to market this achievement to our community and build pride among our residents. And this is definitely something that we can leverage here in Los Altos because we have, firstly, like pretty tight-knit community, and we also have a strong local newspaper. So these are things that we should consider when we're, bringing the community together." Next, moving on to Chino, California. They have also been a member for many years, 32 years. And here is a quote from Salvatore Para, their public works supervisor. "We measure the success by the amount of work and dedication that goes into tree maintenance. A sense of pride, a badge of honor." And again, this is talking about like bringing the community together and having a sense of pride in your community.
Another city we talked to was Citrus Heights, which is near Sacramento. And the senior planner, Ms. Bermudez, said that the city had been working on expanding the city's green infrastructure through tree plantings, preservations, and some public and private investments. These efforts produced a wide range of community benefits, including reducing heat and providing shade. And Citrus Heights has been a member for 6 years of Tree City USA. Now, Placentia is in Southern California, and they've been a member for 4 years of Tree City USA. And the senior management analyst, Ms. Robinson, wrote that the Tree City USA program has been successful for us. It has elevated the visibility of our city's commitment to preserving our urban forests and educating residents about the importance of trees in our community. And finally, La Grande in Oregon, which is in the northeast of Oregon, they have been a member for 34 years, and impressively, they've had growth awards for 32 of those years, improving year after year on their urban forest. And Ms. Gustafson, the urban forester, mentioned that they made a habit of gaining growth awards, and it engaged the whole community by encouraging not to break the streak, and it built a good habit of improving the urban forest each year. She also mentioned that being actively involved in Tree City USA and the Tree City USA program has built awareness of and support for the community forest.
And now on to how Los Altos can benefit. So firstly, Los Altos easily qualifies for some aspects of the program. We spend around $13 per capita on trees annually, well over the $2 requirement. We also qualify for the tree board part because the public works department is the one that manages like and liaisons with this program. So we have that. And yeah. And then one aspect of the program is this thing called Growth Awards, which basically awards cities that have went above and beyond in sustainable practices. There's a list of practices that they accept as prerequisites to earning the award, and Los Altos should work towards those after it gets its initial membership. And then joining the program will connect us to resources like the Bank of America grant and the Community Tree Recovery. And both those programs give money to communities that are fighting issues with climate change or natural disaster. Community Canopy and Treeline USA are two other programs, and they are tree delivery programs to help residents plant trees in their private residences. Also, we may be eligible for partnerships with PG&E to facilitate the replacement of private trees lost when the power companies have to prune trees and cut down trees for power line.
So a couple of methods to engage the community that we also spoke with the cities were to give a state of the urban forest address to really have the community feel like they're part of the project as well and keep them updated on what is happening. And similarly to undertake various planting projects, not just in public parks, but also in private homes, to once again make them feel like they're part of this process and they're contributing to this. And something further to mention is that while we wrote cities across the USA, New York, Florida, we mainly focused our responses in this presentation on cities close to us that were more similar to our community.
And now I want to address some potential concerns that people may have with joining the program. So one concern that I heard while we were brainstorming was that hosting an Arbor Day celebration, which is one of the requirements, will require time and effort from city staff. But that is something that I believe we can easily do because in past years, we've already had the mayor do a little ceremony where they plant a tree and cut the ribbon. So I think that's a change we can make if the commission agrees. Another concern was that applying will take a lot of time. I actually looked through the application and it's very easy. It's just an easy process. And also that the program will affect the city budget. It won't because the program is free, the application is free, membership is free. And in fact, we're gonna get economic benefits from the program because they connect us to tree delivery services or grants and foundations. Thanks.
So this is a timeline of what it would look like if we did apply to Tree City USA. And the application opens in September of every year. And then we have until December to fill out the application. A nonprofit organization like Greentown can also help fill it out, but it is expected that the city do fills out most of the application, with Greentown filling in any gaps. And then between February and April, we will receive the approvals. And in April, we would then have our Arbor Day celebration to meet the standards.
Next. Yeah, and here are just some statistics about what the program has achieved in 2023. The 3,577 recognized cities, together they have raised almost $3 billion to invest in urban forestry and planted almost 1 million trees. And joining this program will enable us to join the other member cities in making a positive impact. And if you think these numbers are very big, it's also because a lot of big cities like New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco are part of these numbers. So, but joining it will, contribute to these group efforts. I think that's all the slides we have. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah, you could do questions.
So
I've already been to the.
You've been to it. So I have one question, but first, that was a great presentation. You guys laid it out very well. Both the content of the presentation and the way you delivered, I think, was great. So the question I have is, you said it won't take much time to fill out the application. But like, do you have a sense of how many hours it would take one person to fill out?
1 hour from what I've worked out, because I went on the website. You can go through part of the application process. There might be like more steps when they follow up with you, or like background check or something, but from what I tell, probably less than an hour. It's like a very like low number, I guess, but that's my estimate.
I have two questions for you. First one is about the tree board. You said it's not an issue because that's not an independent board from city staff, or is it what you're saying is we have one already?
The tree board. Usually the Tree City USA program, as long as there's like a public works department, they are the ones that manage the program.
So it's not really a board, it's just.
It's not like, it doesn't need the specific name like tree board. It's as long as we have some sort of group that, you know, the one looking out for the trees and passing tree ordinances, which we do. Like we do have a tree ordinance, so that means we qualify. And did you have a second question?
Yeah, the second one is about the financial benefits. So when you talk to cities, did they give you some information about what kind of financial benefits they were able to get after being, you know, a Tree City USA?
Sure. You start. You can start.
You can go.
Okay,
We'll,
yeah.
we'll split it.
It depends. Okay,
That's
sorry.
okay, just go.
So, some of the things they talked about was grants, right, from the programs that the Arbor Day was part of. Or the grants that the Arbor Day offers. And also, I don't think this applies to California yet, at least, but in some states, their state governments have started to give grants based on Tree City USA membership as well. So if California goes in that direction, which is what some of the states, like Iowa was one of them, then that would be another way we could financially benefit.
As Oscar mentioned, the grants help a lot because instead of paying a lot for the trees, you kind of, I don't know if you always get them for free, but you get them for free or for a reduced price. And so planting more trees, a lot of the city said that the shade, or like the shade they provided or shielding in the winter, was really beneficial for them for their energy costs. So not so much that they make money, but kind of that they reduce the energy costs, not only for individual homes, but also for the city.
Can I ask a marketing question? I see in the past, what I associate with Tree City USA are the sort of placards that they'll have people put on poles, that sort of way to spread word. Did you come across any cities doing anything interesting to really push that, like, hey, we are a Tree City USA in their community when you're reaching out to them?
I don't know if this was like maybe a very like visible way, but I know a lot of local newspapers will cover like when cities get certified with Tree City USA, or when they host Arbor Days, or when they get growth awards. Like I know local newspapers will write about that, and also they will have, you know, every Arbor Day that's gonna be part of the celebration is being in Tree City USA.
Yeah. Sorry. Specifically for the Arbor Day celebration, a lot of the cities that try to market it just make a really big celebration, and that's how they market their Tree City USA status. So basically, like every year, they get a reminder that we are indeed a Tree City USA, and then, as Oscar also said, they publish in newspapers about this big celebration, and then the town and the surrounding towns know.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was great. Moving on. The next item would be to approve The minutes of the last meeting. I move to approve the minutes. Questions? I don't have any questions or clarifications or minutes? No. I move to approve. I'll second that.
Because we have so many virtual, we will have to take a roll call for this, or we have to individual votes for this. So, Commissioner Texler,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Race. Vice Chair Ryan. Commissioner Delahue,
Yes.
Chair Hecht.
Yes.
Commissioner Lee. Okay.
Yes, Tanya, please add my name to the present list. I noticed that my name wasn't.
Oh, it's not?
Yeah, you have put me in approval for the previous month, but.
Okay, so there is an edit to be made. Okay. So, let's just do that again. So we're filing the Brown Act. Let's take a vote for approving the minutes with, the edits suggested. Commissioner Texler.
Yes.
Vice Chair Ryan. Yeah. Commissioner Delahue.
Yes.
Chair Hecht.
Yep.
Commissioner. Okay. Minutes are passed.
Excellent. So I believe the next item up for consideration is the electrification subcommittee presentation. You have a presentation, I think?
Yes.
Excellent.
You should have it.
I assume you'd like us to wait to ask questions until the end of the presentation?
Up to you. You can ask, right, if you want. We're good to go, right? All right, so we made a presentation back in June at our last meeting, giving you some ideas in terms of which direction we were going into, and we were also asking for some feedback. We actually got some feedback a long time ago, but the presentation actually was already kind of made, but we can talk about some of that as we go along. Table of content, we talk about, well, I won't talk about updates because I think in the interest of time, it was put in the backup slide, so I'm hoping that you've seen that. But if you have any questions about some of the stuff we did in between, we're happy to review that. Talk about strategies, recommendations, and other considerations, and then we'll have a discussion, I'm guessing questions and discussion after this presentation. All right, strategy, I think we had talked about that in June. There's not that much that is changed here. I think our recommendation, our strategy would be first to partner with an outside organization, maybe several. We can talk about modalities later. Organization to accelerate electrification. I'm talking about building electrification in Los Altos. Obviously, an important part of what we want to do is outreach and education. I think there is a lot that can be done there, especially when people have to replace a gas appliance at the last minute. And I think if there was a lot of education done, people were aware of the options, I think things could change as well in what they decide to go with. I think we also would like to incentivize electrification by providing some building exceptions. We also want to disincentivize gas appliances, and we'll talk about some of the proposals we have. And then we won't talk much about rich code, but I think we have to mention it obviously because we can't talk about building electrifications and buildings in general without talking about rich codes. Next one. So the first recommendation obviously is to partner with an outside third party again, it could be one, it could be several, we can talk about that later, to accelerate the electrification of single home residences, and also potentially multi-home residences. But I think Los Altos is mostly a single home type community. So if we have to target one, it would be single home residences. We would like the program to start in Q1 2025. I think it's doable. We have more than 6 months to be able to put out an RFQ or an RFP or an open call and get answers. I think that would be fantastic if we could do that. We would argue that the program should go until at least 2027 as a first step, so roughly 2 years, 2.5 years, and potentially extend it depending on success to 2029. And the reason why we put 2027 and 2029, because it's in line with what the Bay Area Air Quality Management District is planning in terms of phasing out gas appliances. So there are, at least as that we know of, and most of them actually are local, except for one, 3 to 4 potential partners that we can ask. We've evaluated 3 of those 4. Block Power, Ensemble. We talked about Block Power and Ensemble a little bit in June. Quick Carbon, which we actually evaluated during the summer, in July. And then another one, we haven't had time to evaluate them, is Zero Homes is another option also. So I think there are options out there in terms of potential partners. They each have their pluses and minuses. We'll talk about that, but I think they're viable options. And then again, the way we do it, we can do it through an RFP, RFQ, or open call meaning we would have more than one partner in that case. I think our preference, as a subcommittee, would be to have one partner through a request for proposal or request for qualification. That's a discussion to have with staff and the commission. Next one. So of the 3 we've evaluated, they all have pluses and minuses between Block Power, Ensemble, and Quick Carbon. I'm not going to go through all of them. I just, you can take a look at that. I think they're all viable partners. I think the way we would work with them would be a little bit different, and the skills they bring to the table are a little bit different. Some are more established, some are newer also. So I think that's what we're looking at. Block Power have been around for a while. Quick Carbon have been around for a while. Ensemble is a new organization. But then, Block Power is also busy with other big cities, not just in California, but around the country. So how much dedication will we have from them if we decide to go with them is always a question mark. They also might be more expensive than the other ones. I think Ensemble is a smaller organization, very lean, but very eager as well. And then Quick Carbon is also, it's been around for a little bit longer. It's bigger than Ensemble, but they also, I think, are very interested in doing something like that with us. Zero Homes we would have to evaluate or not, but that's another option that we're not going to discuss here because we haven't evaluated them. And that's pretty much for our first recommendation.
But you don't make a recommendation on which partner to go with?
No, I think we should go through the process of doing a request for proposal or request for qualification. And we need to define what we want to do, in that, what we want them to do in the request for proposal or qualification, and then see what they come back with, and then choose the best. Based on what they give us and based on what we want them to do.
Should we prioritize the criteria when we evaluate them? What do you think?
Yes, absolutely.
It looks like you have tabulated them very well.
Yeah, I think we should definitely do that. We should be specific about what we want, and then, yeah.
And based on that, we can look at the proposal and then we can make a decision.
Thank you. We can do quick questions during the presentation, but we should leave any discussion till after public comment.
I can speak to the next two. The second recommendation is to, do a lot more on outreach and education. So we would recommend that city develop a comprehensive citywide educational and outreach plan. The first thing would be to update our sustainability website, give it easier access, link to the homepage. Right now, it's buried a couple pages down. And easy links to partner organizations, so folks can get to it. We researched a lot of other ways, a lot of other cities are setting up their electrification pages, and a lot of them, there are some good examples of how it's quickly get to a lot of information, make it front and center, so folks, don't have to dig through it. Continue the EV fair, and this was something that we heard from several of the folks we talked to, and add more, and convert it into a more of a building electrification fair, as we discussed before, add more building electrifications to that EV fair. We talked to the deputy director of planning and brainstormed how we could bring more visibility to electrification options in the very beginning, in the planning phases, even before they're speccing out appliances. So the first and easiest thing would be to, in the permit package application, to have a link to the sustainability page, and if we have, more detailed links to electrification options, so we can get that on the planning permit itself, on the application. So when people click through all the things that they, have to check on, they can just say, okay, this is something that I can look at and consider. And then to get more of the community involved, to develop a training platform for various groups in the city, like the BAT, Resilient Los Altos, and bring them together to kind of give everyone a common language and train them on what the city's doing and what the options are, so then they can, disseminate in their neighborhoods. Another thing we thought to bring, the subject of electrification more front and center is to create a series of lectures or town halls kind of thing, and maybe at the library, maybe here at the community center, possibly once a quarter, or more frequently for a year. That can, focus on each subject, so heat pumps, water heaters, solar, battery, induction cooktops. There was even some discussion of potentially adding in induction cooktop rental to loaners through the library, so people to get, who are not familiar or, are afraid that, they don't know if it'll work, how it'll work for them, to try it out and see, and see the benefits of using it. We could consider adding electrification booths at the farmers market as part of the rotating information booth that we were considering for various things related to sustainability. And then the last thing would be to advertise in the town crier, or have invite ourselves and others who might be experts to write articles that would go in the town crier, so people can read about that. And they could be articles about things we're doing, or articles about general information. Next page. This one is to incentivize electrification, and it's, before going the route of, before, looking at the route of financial incentives, we figure that it's things that, that don't necessarily cost the city dollars, would be to allow people some flexibility when they're building, or doing remodels. So add building incentives. Go back up. These could be done at the planning stage, and some of these we brainstormed with the deputy director of planning. Examples of incentives could be increased lot coverage, increased, FAR, a priority review timeline, so that, if there are different types of applications, the gas-based ones versus the all-electric ones get a different timeline or a different priority. And then if we have specifically for equipment that needs to be put outdoors, to have it easier for folks to put it outdoor give lower setbacks. You know, currently the setbacks are 5 feet, but you know, maybe if they're considering changing out their appliance and put in an electric one, give them lower setbacks, especially if the equipment is really quiet, as some of these new heat pumps are. So those are kind of some of the thoughts we had on incentivizing people without going to the extent of giving out city money.
And I think this is a quick question, is these are all legal, like, we can do these things legally, the lot coverage and.
So the increased lot coverage, the city of Sunnyvale is doing it, and I don't, so I mean, we can look into it more, obviously.
Or we can-
If there's, we don't think that there should be any illegal, you know, issues with incentivizing one, you know, something that's beneficial to the city as a whole. I think we already do it for, there's already a lot of incentives, for example, for building ADUs or for doing SB9s and things like that, that is demonstrated different ways of allowing different standards for, depending on the type of construction, so we think it should be fine.
Laura, do you want to continue?
I know, I think it will be better for, it'll be too hard for me to do it remotely.
All right, that's fine. Well, good. All right, the other recommendation, we've talked about incentivizing people. And I think we also should consider disincentivizing people that continue to install gas appliances. I mean, we all know what they are. They really are an environmental and health hazard. I mean, we know about the emission of nitrogen oxide, carbon monoxide, and formaldehyde in homes, and the impact it has on child, mostly with regards to asthma, but also in older adults, elderly that have chronic pulmonary issues. So that has a cost. It's not something that's, you know, obviously you polluting your home, you're gonna have consequences. And I think, you know, not only people need to realize that, but I think we should also think about it when we legislate. In addition, you know, if you use a gas appliances, you're gonna emit CO2, you're gonna emit methane also outside, which contributes to climate change, obviously. So this emission of harmful pollutants, you know, obviously has a societal cost, individual cost, societal cost as well, with regards to climate change specifically. And I think individual installing new gas appliances should contribute to the city's effort to make the town cleaner, healthier, and safer for all residents of Los Altos. So we propose that the city charges an environmental fee for each new gas appliance installed. And we believe that fee should be reasonable, but it should be significant as well. And we are suggesting a 10% of the total install cost for the particular appliance. And the proceeds should go to an environmental fund that would be used to fund cap actions. So it should be very separate from the rest of the budget. It should be really specific to doing sustainability efforts, specifically in, you know, implementing the cap actions.
Quick question, do you see other cities that do that?
You know, I've researched it, I've inquired around. I haven't received a specific answer yet from the organizations that are more likely to know about it. So I will continue to do that, but I haven't heard yet, either yes or no. Want to do the rich codes, Sheena?
Oh, sure. So we looked at, given that we're not technically allowed to look at reach codes, we looked at reach codes. And I mean, they're currently not being enforced, even the 2023 beach codes that were passed are not currently being enforced, even though we don't know if folks know that they're not being enforced. That aside, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District is still planning to enforce regulations, 9.4 and 9.6 that will, come in 2027 and 2031, where, ban greenhouse water, gas-based water heaters and large gas furnaces, small gas furnaces, large. So it's gonna go away anyway. So we figure that we can look, as we talked before, look at using emissions-based ordinance, kind of like what Los Altos Hills is doing, as we talked about in the previous slide. Consider it as a pollution and an air quality issue, and then work on it that way. And I still don't quite understand. So the flexible path options, which kind of say, okay, we work on it as reducing energy use and therefore reducing the number of gas-based appliances, in the end, still ends up being mixed energy building. So we still have gas being supplied to the building. So doesn't necessarily get us to where we need to go. So I think in this case, while we could consider going through an emission-based ordinance and all that stuff, since 2025 is upon us at this point, doesn't make sense to go and work on a new ordinance. So we recommend just waiting for the new California building codes to come in and then go on from there. So did I capture it right?
I think you did great.
Yeah, and that's next.
When do we see the 2025 building codes? Do you know? Is it mid-year?
So it should be early 2025, right?
It's usually
Yeah.
calendar Q1.
So we should know pretty soon what it's gonna look like, and then we can make a decision whether we want to develop the reach codes or not. I think there's no point in doing it now.
Was that it? Was there anything else?
That's it.
That's it, yeah, discussion.
Question.
Yeah, great presentation, very comprehensive. We do clarifying questions first, right? Yeah, any additional questions from the commission?
I just have a suggestion. I think that, some of those health hazard about those emission, nitrogen oxide, and, like formaldehyde, it's very serious. I feel like maybe we can word a little bit in a way like this is potential health hazard from a gas appliance, especially when there's not a complete combustion, because gas appliance, it doesn't function very well. It does present this kind of health hazard, right? I mean, people can argue gas appliance has been around for so long. The regulators should have, look at that a long time ago, every household has it for decades, right? So I think we're trying to steer people away is that kind of a potential health hazard they are subject themselves to in some of this set of situations. Because I see that, if people see like formaldehyde, it's pretty scary, right? It's something, the other thing, I'm not sure about the penalty, how well that's going to be received. Perhaps we could say, well, it's some of those gas appliances are going to be obsolete in a few years. Okay, so for a household to invest in their home appliances, you want the life to be at least 10 years or longer. So I think economically and also health benefit-wise, we encourage people instead of I penalize you. You need to pay more. I just felt it would be better received.
Okay, so let's keep this to clarifying questions, this part, then we do public comment, and then we can have content discussion and issue our opinions. But So I think I have a couple clarifying questions. The first is, did you talk to the city about bringing on a third party and whether, as part of the process, I mean, so do you know if the city staff supports bringing on a partner or have they given you any input on that?
No, we haven't really had those discussions. So, but I think, if we serious about moving forward with electrification, it's not going to happen just because we talk about it and we put some articles in the town crier, right? So we're gonna need to, actually, you were talking about incentivizing. That's what we're trying to do as a city, is by bringing a partner to not only accelerate, but incentivize people actually to put the right electrical appliances in their homes instead of gas appliances. So I think many cities are doing it, and many cities actually are doing it or have done it, working with third-party partners in different formats to accelerate electrification. And I think for the city, from a cost standpoint, it's not a huge cost. I mean, when we get answers, if we do an RFP or an RFQ, whatever, when we get answers, we know what the exact cost is. But from the discussions we've had, we're looking at minimal costs really to be able to electrify a certain number of homes, and we can set specific targets, right? So I think no, we have to put together a request for proposal. That's going to be obviously staff is going to have to take the lead on that. The review of the proposals can be done, with staff collectively with us, subcommittee and the environmental commission. So that's something we would do together. We can also help staff put together the request for proposal, because determining exactly what we really want from this third-party organization, be very specific about what we want and be able to grade them based on their answers.
We did speak with other cities who were working with these, to kind of get a sense of this,
Good.
monitoring the discussion.
Good, great. Any other questions from the commission? No? Okay.
For Block Power, they're targeting buildings, correct, not appliances, whereas Ensemble and the other, Quick Carbon are targeting appliances, correct?
So Block Power can do buildings, they can do by appliance. So then it's not just like all, they obviously, most of the programs they're doing right now, Block Power, is multi-family homes. So, they try to do the whole building, but they can do by appliance. They can really, it can be tailored to whatever the needs are. And the other one's the same. They can do the whole house. I mean, Quick Carbon, for example, they can install an EV charger in your garage. They can install help you install solar panels, batteries, and so on. So Ensemble is more targeted to water heaters right now. They're going to expand to HVAC, I believe, before the end of the year. So by the time we get there in like 2025, they should at least be able to provide what's going to make a real difference in terms of electrification.
So that's a follow-up question. Has the subcommittee, does the subcommittee have a recommendation on whether they're targeting buildings, single-family homes, multifamily homes, appliances, specific appliances? Or if we were to go, because if we were to go out for an RFP, based on what we want, are we planning that to be the next stage of kind of narrowing it down even more?
I don't want to, we talked about it as a subcommittee. I don't want to speak for Laura and Rashina, but I think, considering the makeup of Los Altos in terms of homes and so on, I think the greatest benefit for us would be to go up to single family homes, probably. It's very different from Mountain View or San Jose or some of those cities, right? But for us, probably going up to single family homes, be very specific in the RFP about that, would be great. And then, what we were suggesting is to do at least something over 2 years until the end of 2027, and then revisit by the mid 2027, whether we want to expand that further and whether we want to change some of the criteria. It's an evolving
Yeah, maybe during the discussion, we can talk about what because I don't think we have a specific recommendation. One way or the other, but we can talk about it.
Any other questions, clarifying questions? Okay, we have two comments on electrification from the community. Connie Miller from Greentown. I'll go first. Okay. He must be David King? Yes, I'm David King.
Well, good evening. I'm David Kane. I'm a resident and volunteer with the North Silicon Valley chapter of the Citizens Climate Lobby. I'm so encouraged by the subcommittee's report on accelerating electrification, and particularly recommendation number 2, which is about community outreach. I co-lead both the chapters and the national organizations outreach teams, and by coincidence, I've been part of a community effort to launch a campaign that would encourage our fellow residents to electrify their homes, starting with heat pump water heaters. We're working with Greentown Los Altos in what we call the Los Altos Electrification Collaboration. Several of us are attending remotely and have sent letters of support to the subcommittee's recommendations. Many city electrification programs involve a push to get their communities to electrify. What we bring is unique, resident-led initiative to pull new electrification into our homes. We are very active in organization and planning. Should the commission decide to move forward with these recommendations, the Los Altos Electrification Collaboration would be eager to engage and support your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm gonna completely go off script just because it was difficult to hear back there, and I wanna make sure that our mayor and our city staff heard what I think was a really fabulous presentation that you put together and have documented well. The CCL folks and some of us at Greentown have had the opportunity to already evaluate it. We've kind of been doing things in parallel, and they end up very similarly in the end, which gives me a lot of encouragement that we're all kind of coming to the right idea. So we want to also echo what CCL does. Greentown wants to partner with you in this, but the message I really want to make sure that the city hears loud and clear is that they are proposing an entire process, and you can't just give one part of the process and be successful. So we can do all this demand generation with CCL and awareness and updated websites and everything, but if we don't have the process to back it, all we're gonna do is get more frustrated people. There's many cities that we can go to for examples, and tweak it to our needs. So for example, Palo Alto has done this. They have a completely integrated program where they brought in third parties. They even interviewed down to the contractor level who they recommend, which I know is not historically what we do, but I'm going to suggest that we do that with a few vendors. And it's a turnkey system. And in short amount of time, I think in 18 months, they've enabled 400 people, 400 households to convert to heat pumps. If you look at the Silicon Valley Clean Energy data and who got rebates in Los Altos in all of 2023 for heat pump water heaters, it was only 20 people. So we got a lot of ways to go, particularly if you do the math, we need to be doing at a rate of about 1,000 a year. So we've got to somehow bridge the gap to do our part to society and also to help prepare our citizens for when 2027 comes around and they don't manufacture gas heat pumps anymore. So there's a lot of detail in here for things like electrification, permit streamlining. So look at what Half Moon Bay is doing. Look at what SBCE is doing in terms of the permit streamlining process money that they're putting towards. We've got Los Altos Hills creating kiosks in all their planning and building departments and sending outreach correspondence to all of their cities. There's cities all up the peninsula who are putting on seminars sponsored by the cities on how to electrify specifically heat pump water heaters and space heaters, because those give us the biggest carbon bang for our buck. So thank you for taking the time to put this together. Greentown would love to help you however you need our help, so just let us know. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
One more, I'll just say a minute.
Yep. Looks like we have another comment from Gary.
Well, I'm Gary Hedden, Greentown, Los Altos, representing them. There was an article in this morning's paper, the Chronicle, about exactly what we're talking about here. It was about having a Sherpa help people through the process, because it is a complicated process and there's so much going on and it changes all the time, all the incentives that are available. And so they have done that. They've vetted contractors and they'll sit down and spend time with the person who is interested in converting, electrifying their home. And so there are people doing this. Read that article in this morning's paper. It's wonderful. And I put in a heat pump water heater, and I never have had to take a cold shower.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary. So now we move on to discussion. Who has some comments?
Comments and questions.
Okay,
Not
sure.
clarifying question, as a partial question for staff. If next year, that subcommittee technically has to dissolve, correct? What does it look like in terms of when we get into implementation? Can those same people be on that, or does it have to be completely different people? And how would that work in terms of the commission being able to work on these sort of outreach efforts?
So the goal of this subcommittee was to provide recommendations. So I think that we would have to elect a new subcommittee with a different goal. That would also be 1 year, but I would have to confirm with the city clerk on that.
Okay. Because I just want to put that out there, start thinking about that, because we're talking about really heavy outreach. And I just think it's sort of thing where you almost want every hand that you can. But there's this limitation with our subcommittee structure. So I just think we have to start figuring out how to navigate that as we're implementing these things. And then, if you want me to comment on other things, if you could bring up the presentation. I mean, there's sort of something on every slide. I guess I'll just echo a comment that I had last time, just to reiterate, because I'll keep bringing it up if we keep suggesting it, the sort of increasing lot size. We're not doing anything actively to try to incentivize the removal of non-native grasses and these sort of things. So I just worry in terms of, the larger consequences of what waste ends up generating if we're just giving larger homes and we have, more private properties when we need more public good spaces. So, that there's just these unintended consequences that can come with that sort of incentive. One sort of clarifying question, Bayren Energy Advisor Program seems to sound very similar to what Ensemble is offering. I don't know how much you looked into, like, how different they are, considering Bayren's is a free program.
Well, the thing is that Ensemble, like the other ones, it's a really a turnkey program, right? You get them on, you just, like, they all do it differently, but the idea is that it's all automatic, right? So it's like you say, this is what I want, or you say, this is my home, then you get an evaluation, then you get a a report that says you should do that, then you get a call, someone calls you or set up a Zoom meeting and then start working with you through these programs, give you an estimate of what it would cost, how it would be done. And then it's all done. You as a resident or as a homeowner, you don't have anything to do other than initiate the first step. And everything else is automatic, right? So, and then it can be as far as them taking care of the rebates and discounts. Like when you have to pay at the end of the day, it's already discounted. So you don't have to worry about anything like that. That's the ensemble model. Some of the other ones, like they either, you still pay the total amount, not including rebates and discounts, but they can help you get those rebates and discounts back, which sometimes can take 3 months, can take 6 months. But the idea is make it as simple as possible so that people don't have to think about it too much.
Yeah.
Like when they call, they say, my gas water heater just broke down, and you're calling 1-800 gas water heater, whatever. And then they come and they say, hey, I have one in my trunk. I can put it in there. It's going to cost you $3,500. Okay, I have no choice. Just put it in.
Yeah.
It's the same. The idea is like, you know, and we can have different types of programs in this organization. We can have an emergency program we can set up with them, like the one I just discussed. Or we can have something like people plan a little bit. Their appliance is 15 years old, it's gonna break down. Maybe I should upgrade it now. Or get a more efficient one. And then, you know, they either call a number or they go on the website, and then they enter the information, and then people follow up with them, and then the process starts, and it's pretty much automatic.
So I'll just say, my comment then is generally, I seem to see more benefit from block power and quick carbon, of those three based on what's presented today, because what I'm hearing about Ensemble sounds very similar to what I was able to get with Bayren when I was getting in a heat pump water heater. So I just think the cost needs to be justified more if we end up going with them, is my observation. Can we go to the next slide?
Just to talk about
Yeah.
cost, because I wanted to make a comment about cost so that people clearly understand what we're looking at. The cost to the city is going to vary from one provider to another, right? But some of those providers, the cost to the city is $0, except for the marketing and outreach dollars. That we would have to do some outreach and marketing. We need to buy into it. We need to pay for that.
Yeah.
But that's all it would cost us as a city. So we're not talking about huge amount of money.
Yeah, and of course, with Ensemble taking care of the incentives up front, we feel. So, I don't know, Bayren did that?
Yeah, that's the thing, is that's sort of how it works. I mean, what Bayren helps you, informs you of what those are, and yeah, those end up getting taken out of the cost of what you get, so.
Right.
So it feels very, that sounds very similar to me.
But if you're like me, you probably, there's 3 incentives, you maybe do one and then you forget about the second and you lose the paperwork about the third. So, but.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's
it all
one
comes
thing.
down to how
Yeah,
much.
yeah. So it's, I mean, the other thing is, it's a lot of, what I feel is that even to my mind, there's a lot of different avenues out there that you can go and get things done. But because there's a lot of different avenues out there, it becomes more confusing, and therefore, so if we're working with one provider or maybe even 2 different, depending on whatever it is, then you can just say, oh, this is my city, this is what I do, and they'll, you know, it becomes easier in your mind you have a number to call to get that done. Plus, they'll help us with the outreach.
But and then again, it's
And you get a certified contractor, right? That's common with all of them. They recommend contractors. Some of them will pick the one for you, and some of them will give you 1 or 2 to choose from, and some of them will do the work, right?
yeah. I mean, it's basically. I mean, I've evaluated 2 of them, Block Power, a while ago, but and the process is very simple. It's just a matter of a phone call, a Zoom call, and then they take care of everything, really. I mean, they tell you, they give you, so we looked at 3 contractors that we have because they have their list of contractors. They contracted with the contractors in some ways, if you want. And they say, okay, this is the best option for you. This is the cost. You say yes or no, contractor shows up. You don't have to worry about choosing a contractor, sending calling 3 or 4 and then choosing between the 3 or 4 without knowing exactly what you're dealing with and so.
Just want to add to Commissioner Van Rees's comment is that there's also the Go Electric Advisor that SVCE just came out with, and if you go to their website, this is how they describe what the Go Electric Advisor is. It's a free live service to help SVC customers take the guesswork out of going electric. Our team of friendly trained professionals can help at every step of the way, from simple questions to detailed plans. So I think that's something we should also consider. They just started it. It's probably going to evolve. I'm not sure how many people have used it, but I think it would be beneficial to see if it's been helpful and get some testimonials on it as well.
So I would just add that, and we talked about this, that we want to promote as many different service providers as possible. And so that's part of the outreach element of it is, yes, BayREN, yes, SVC, Go Electric. But I think what Bruno was saying, that the specific targeted outreach that having a contracted provider might give additionally to those would probably be beneficial to us. And I would also say that, you know, like Ensemble and I believe also Block Power, if not Zero Homes, like they do it app-based service, which I think would appeal to a certain segment of people as opposed to a phone-based service as well.
We got a public comment talking about EV fare should be called electrification fare. Certainly, I just want to say it's called Destination Electric. I think there's a legacy that from the cap, it was mentioned as an EV fare, but I feel like, yeah, we as a commission at least have moved on from that narrow concept. So I just wanted to mention that. My general feeling is that, yeah, we really need a lot of one-on-ones support. I mean, I almost think try to have somebody available every week, like in office hours, to try to get this going. I worry about even 4 per year not being enough. I just considering the number that we're talking about in terms of how many people we need to convert, it just feels like yeah, making it as accessible as possible is really key. Next.
Anybody else have comments as we're going through this? Yeah, okay. I would just have one comment, and we can talk about this more when we get to the, what we've done on the, our initiative, our subcommittee, and we did attend the, farmer's market. Didn't find it too effective, for a number of reasons, and I can talk more about that, when we get to our, part in the presentation. Otherwise, I think these are great.
Next slide. I already touched on this earlier, so I don't need to expand on that anymore.
I think these are great. Yeah. I love the incentives and the disincentives.
I didn't have anything on this one either. Oh, I guess, I'm sorry, on that one, I guess, curious if there was any particular actions that you had in mind for the environmental fund, like were you thinking just broadly helping with cap actions, or was there a specific thing in this presentation that you were thinking that would be like what we consider we know to be effective, or like a go-to place that money would go?
We didn't go, I think, beyond just, putting it aside as a sustainability fund to finance cap actions. I think we can be more specific down the road about how we want to use the money, but the idea is we don't really have, we haven't had a budget for sustainability actions. We don't have a budget for cap. I mean, in this year's budget, we have a few $1,000s, but it's nowhere close to what we need to be able to do the cap. We're way behind our targets if you look at what we should have done by the end of 2025, but we need money. So either the city gives us more money, and that's going to have to be in the next year's budget, because for this year's budget it's already done, or we the new permit fees that are gonna go partially to funding cap actions. Or we also get a way of getting money to be able to fund this cap action. I'm not saying the primary driver is this, but I'm just saying if we do this, it should be earmarked for cap actions in general, and we can be more specific. It could be specific electrification in general. But no, we haven't looked beyond.
Something to think about more in terms of getting public support for something if we're very clear about, how those funds would be used.
Yeah.
Next one. Any more? I didn't have anything to say on this one. That's probably it.
I just wanted to, maybe get a chance to discuss what, Tanya was asking before about, what the RFP or RFQ should focus on. And my question, I guess, to that is, when we say electrify a house or a building, we're talking about everything in it, right? Is that what you mean? As opposed to focus on an appliance, was that the question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's a more targeted focus, if it's gonna be per appliance, per, is it for new construction, single family homes? Are we gonna target multifamily buildings? I don't think we can do all those things at one time.
So my thought would be, and we can talk about, is to start with for appliance, because, Bruno, we've done this, dug out the data of what the permits are and what they're going towards, and the lowest hanging fruit with the water heaters. And so I would think, and then, because as you go up until, whole house electrification and all that, it's a bigger project, but I feel like, at least in the beginning, if we have a multi-year program, maybe the first year focuses on appliances. And, but we start with, depending on who we go with, target the gas water heater, and get whatever we can, but, go after the easy things first. And then as we, get through those, and okay, now how can we do the whole building? Because that's a bigger budget, it's a bigger, if I don't need to replace my water heater, if I don't need to replace my HVAC yet, I can do this and that.
Well, I mean, I think the fact is people are looking at it on a appliance by appliance basis.
Right, unless they're
typically,
doing a major.
Unless they're doing a major
Right.
program,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think the solar and the battery, I think that the battery solution right now for solar is still very cost prohibitive. You have to look at how much money that you can save. You saving the battery just in case, there's a power outages, right? Or you just have excessive need in the summertime. So I think by appliance is very practical. And, I think some of the, I particularly have reservation about the battery, the backup battery for the solar. Not everyone has panel, right? And
Yeah.
people who have panel might not want to get that backup battery.
I guess the motivation for that would come if there was a storm, and then have that memory of that. But yeah, it's whatever people can afford and are doing now. So I think, in my opinion, the first priority should be to prevent anyone from putting a new gas-powered water heater when their old one breaks or they're replacing it, because that's just, it's like such a waste.
Yeah.
So that's where I would focus on if we're working with someone to come and, start there and maybe go bigger.
And
But maybe Laura can chime in as well.
question was in the ensemble. They're not doing the outreach, right? So it'd still be, they'd have, like, it'd be the homeowner.
All these providers would do the outreach with us as long as we provide them with the funds to be able to do it. It's their time. They would be able to make presentation, they would be able to do emailing. all that kind of stuff. So, but they need the money for it. They're not going to, they need to somehow at least break even on that thing. So, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, the cost to the city is zero except for all the marketing and outreach we would need to do to be able to make sure that people know that it's available. And we should probably do it for the length of the program, not the first 3 months, for example.
Yeah.
Keep on doing it, keep on advertising, keep on doing the marketing and all that stuff, because I think it's gonna take some time for people to, because you get something in the mail or you see something in the town crier or whatever, or, you don't look at it until something happens and you need to do it. So that's why it needs to be something that's repeated on a regular basis.
And does more advertising and like knocking door to door versus block and power, which will be a more data approach, right? Data driven approach.
Not really. I mean, the outreach would be very similar for all these companies, right? The way they would do it. We could do webinars, we can do mailings, we can do advertising. They all probably would do it very similarly. The other thing that, for example, Block Power, they do when they sign with the city, there will be a page on their website, which will be the city page. We can ask any of those to do the same, right? There is not really anything specific.
They can maintain part of the website and keep it updated with the incentives and all that stuff, so.
Yeah, for the Los Altos residents. I think that's would be part of what we will request, is that there is something specific on their website or on their app or whatever for Los Altos residents, so it's even easier.
Any other comments, questions? I guess I have one minor comment and then one kind of general question as we kind of bring this to closure. The one comment is, I think as I sent you in an email, I think it'd be great to have a quarterly electrification report card.
Yeah.
We tend to do it on an ad hoc basis with planning, but if we can get a set report card and say, hey, can you update this quarterly? And we get to see it quarterly, maybe we put it on the website quarterly. Here's how heat pump water heaters are growing. Here's how, all the different appliances based on, that would be great. And then as we bring this discussion to closure, I assume the next step would be to vote if we support this. Is that right?
It would be, I guess, to vote on one of the recommendations, which which are very broad, I think. I guess, we would vote for an overall recommendation and then we'd have to narrow it down.
So do we narrow that down here, or do we let the subcommittee narrow that down?
I think if we could do it two ways, narrow it down here, or allow the subcommittee to decide with the city and then go from there.
My personal opinion is, in order to bring this to closure, I think we vote. My preference would be to vote generally that we support these general recommendations, and then have the subcommittee work with city staff to hone it, narrow it, and figure out what we're actually, each of those specific actions are. Does that make sense? Because I think if we get into a discussion on each recommendation and honing that here, it could be challenging.
Yeah, I think what we want from the environmental commission is to tell us, okay, recommendation one, we agree with it or we don't agree with it. Recommendation 2, 3, 4, whatever. And then I think the next step is really implementation, right? So what do we do with this? As a subcommittee, we need to work with staff on every single one of these actions and try to figure out exactly how this recommendation and try to figure out exactly how we're going to do it. Yeah. And then some of it's going to have to go to the council anyway, and most of them actually. So I think we have to figure out next steps and kind of maybe bring back a schedule of next steps to the.
Yeah, that's why I was saying the vote would be like, okay, and maybe I'm thinking about it just from my perspective, but I support all these recommendations at a high level. I still have questions on how we're actually going to implement a partnership and what the actual outreach is and who's going to pay for it. But and I think that, I trust the subcommittee to come up with those answers with staff. I think we all need to be involved with that. So what I would say is, I would say, yeah, I think these are great. I like the idea of all the recommendations. I don't know what's legal, what's not on some of them, but I'm not gonna figure that out here. We're not gonna figure it out here.
So I think just our thought process when we were putting these together, there was a bigger list that we had at the previous discussion, is that most of these need to work in parallel at different paces and with different focus for us to reach the goal. So that's at least my thought. I don't know if you think differently, unless the commission feels strongly about one or the other of the recommendations to drop one of them. So if the commission votes, generally supporting all 4 recommendations, that'd be easy. If that's not the case, then we can go recommendation by recommendation.
Including the reach codes.
Yeah,
Which another recommendation was other considerations, but I
Yeah.
think we need to make sure that you're okay with what we're suggesting is to wait.
I mean, I guess we could go one by one and talk about what we agree with, and then get a sense of whether we could vote and just agree with these and then move it forward.
Yeah, I think if we wanna go one by one to make sure everyone understands what the category is, so like recommendation 1 is partnering with a third party.
Yeah.
That would be the high level. And then, so, yeah.
So I would agree with partnering, I would agree with outreach, I would agree with incentives and disincentives, and I agree with your recommendation on reach code. And so across the board, I agree with these generally. Again, I think there's a lot of work underneath each one of those, and some of this may get dropped or pushed back, but that's not for us to figure out here. So my own personal opinion is I would support all 4 of these recommendations, or 5, whatever. That's mine.
I'm okay with, work with the third party, the outreach, education. On number 3, I have reservation about, penalty towards people. I really feel we should have done a little bit different approach.
Number 4,
I really can't.
the recommendation for the environmental fee.
Okay. Number 3, I think the direction is good, but I don't know if those things, they are within what the city can do to people. Give you that kind of incentive without
Right.
without controversy. I don't know, if people found out that's what's happening. I think that issue, I'm not very certain on that part.
But that would be their job to figure that
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Okay. I think it's worth to proceed, but we have to probably have a level of, I don't know, a certainty, what we can do without causing too much pushback and objections from residents.
So I'll just jump in really quick. So Tanya actually did some just initial discussion and talked to the city of Sunnyvale where this kind of idea came out of. And I'm gonna reach out to them and actually find out directly from like approving body to approving body. Like their planning officer pretty much expressed that unless it is a brand new development and you are catching in the planning process, it's not been as successful as I think it kind of seems like it could be. And so we would want to probably understand it a little bit better. We also have to understand is I think this is something that we can consider as obviously it's one of multiple recommendations, but this would take more time because this would also go to the planning commission. So there's a variety of other kind of avenues. So we can definitely kind of, I think maybe get back to you guys with another kind of like a report out from like actual staff perspective of like the zoning administrator of Sunnyvale and how they've approved projects or not. The one thing I would say is that Tanya did get some really great, information from was that it also has helped to essentially curtail people from having to go through the discretionary review process in general, not going to a public hearing. That's going to be, I mean, we've been doing that for like the last you know, 2 years of trying to kind of peel back the layers of some of our discretionary review with quite a lot of opposition. And we have housing laws to fall back on. With this, we don't really have any state level guidance to fall back on. So we should probably, you know, spend a little bit more time doing some research and discussion with people like Sunnyvale or others that might have similar programs in general.
So I guess the thought on these two, just again, the first one, if it's increased lot coverage, increased FAR, is to enable zero gas homes. So yeah, if they cut, so, and that's kind of the holy grail, right? If you can get people to not have gas come to their house, there's no leak, there's no methane leaks, there's no, all these other air quality issues. And the second one is more kind of appliance by appliance. So if we can attack it both ways and have, even a small number of homes turn over to, okay, cut off from gas, that gets the ball rolling on that end. And this just kind of incentivizes people to do each appliance. So, but yeah, if we need to talk and, see. Yeah. We came upon this after a discussion with planning, but again, that was based on, if the council agrees and they decide this is the route, then we will kind of address that there many ways down the line. This is just us to recommend.
Carl, would you recommend, or would you support all four recommendations generally?
I support 1 and 2. 4 I support because I think of it as you just adding more tax on top of cigarette sort of thing where, yeah, but then 3, I can't support it with the current sub-bullets. I think priority review timeline makes sense, but like I said, I just don't feel good about the ramifications of offering increased lot coverage and increasing Florida area ratio. I just think there's too many consequences from making that sort of decision in terms of how it might get abused by realty groups.
So Tanya, then is another option, recommendation by recommendation, we vote and then moving forward?
Well, it's a majority, so
Yeah.
we would just take a vote on whether the commission agrees with all of
All
the
four, and then,
recommendations.
okay.
and that's
So,
what the commission should do.
So I'll go ahead and move then that we vote and accept all 4 recommendations. General recommendations with the assumption that the subcommittee and the staff will work on honing these and probably coming back at some point with a clarifying or a more clear set of recommendations and implementation timelines. That makes sense?
Yeah, it's a final set of recommendation. If we have to, like Nick was saying about recommendation 3, gather some more information on the setbacks. We can talk to Palo Alto because they have the setbacks that are specific for electrical appliances, which is different from their setbacks. And then Sunnyvale for the lot coverage and so on. And then the other ones, it's a lot about implementation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also do just want to say that staff does need more, I think, honed in direction on, because these recommendations contain a bunch of projects within them, so.
Especially this one, yeah.
And yeah, and we're already doing some of these things and we'll continue to be doing them with SVC and as well. But yeah, I think.
So maybe I think that we should clarify what voting on this means and what the next step would be. And my understanding of that would be the commission supports this. The next step would be to work with staff and figure out the details, because a lot of these things are examples of what we would, support as, what staff would support. And then that maybe goes in front of council for them to approve. That's my understanding of what the next step is. So the next step would just be for the subcommittee to move forward and work with the staff to, nail in the details of each recommendation. And then if it's not feasible, based on whatever discussions, we drop that as, before we go to the next step.
Yeah, I think that's what we're saying is we'll vote to approve these generally. You guys, subcommittee goes and does work with the city staff, maybe come back to the subcommittee or the council, commission and give us an update. And then the next step after that.
Basically, if you're okay with that, we'll come back with a plan of action.
Exactly, that's exactly what I'm saying, yeah.
We're just talking top line of each recommendation, yes? Or,
Well, it's what they have on the document, so if you don't support them, you'll have to vote no, I think.
You may want to do it recommendation by recommendation.
I'm trying to get it all done in one, and I think we have, if I assume the subcommittee votes yes, if I assume I vote yes, we've got enough.
But it would be like the next recommendation, or the next meeting, the next recommendation would be like, we're gonna go with a third party. Or we're gonna go with outreach campaign.
Yes.
We're gonna go with, what's number 4? The lot coverage incentive, which would be one thing. Does that make sense?
Right,
So how do you want it, Tanya? Do we want us to vote on each recommendation, or do you want us to vote on all of it?
So I think voting on all of it, because it's a majority anyway.
Yeah, and then you guys can hone it out and figure out what's doable and what's not.
And
with
we
this
definitely,
stuff. So,
take in discussion items, discussion. We take in the discussion, not that as guidance.
Yes, yeah. Right, so I move to vote to approve the 4 recommendations, again, assuming subcommittee work with staff and own the final recommendations. And those,
I'll second it, I guess.
And take a vote, Commissioner Texler,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Rees,
I guess I have to abstain.
okay, Commissioner, Vice Chair Mayan? Yes. Commissioner Delview,
Yes.
Chair Hecht,
yes.
Commissioner Liu?
yes.
Okay, so let the record show, 5 yes, 1 abstain, and 1 absent.
All right, good job. Next item up are is an informational item, the budget update.
So just informational, the commission kind of asked for us to bring back, so the city council authorized the $50,000 for this fiscal cycle. And then obviously, as previously discussed, is depending on what revenues are collected over the course of this fiscal year, they will take that in their consideration about what they will allocate. I mean, if we had a crazy surge of, $500,000, sorry to break it to you, you're not getting $500,000. That's way too much that would be allocated to it, but they'll obviously review exactly what revenues are collected during this current fiscal cycle, and then proportionally provide that to the commission for cap implementation for the preceding years.
I have a process question. You draft the budget that you present to the council. When is the draft being done? I mean,
So
in
the
terms of.
draft, we start the process like in February each year.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So does it make sense to have to earmark at the February meeting of the Environmental Commission something around the budget and what the commission would like to see in the budget?
Not really, because I mean, we're just starting to put together numbers, and everything. We really don't know, honestly, until probably April. So maybe more so in March, we can plan on bringing something to kind of give you guys a little bit of an anticipation of what we're projecting. Because we also have to keep in mind is that some of our numbers we're running on total kind of budget projections because we don't know what we're gonna have for the year-end close of the book. Until we actually close on June 30th every year. So like right now, we're still reconciling last fiscal cycle until the end of this month. So that's 60 full days, after the beginning of the fiscal cycle. So we end up having to kind of work forward and backward at the same time, on a fiscal budget for the city. So it's a little bit hard to kind of project until we get as close as possible to the year end. And since we did just adopt new permit fees, we would, we can't really now use the previous years to kind of multiply out and figure out what we might anticipate as the dollars. It's not apples to apples because of the permit fee structure. So, we'll have a better understanding come March, essentially.
That's good, because I think what I'm coming from, what I'm suggesting is that if that's possible, if that's something that's acceptable to the city at large, is that for us, if we start working on the work plan about the same time, we should be able to have an idea of what kind of budget we want to be able to implement the work plan. And then, hopefully we can work that into the budget, working with you as of March, for example, and make sure we have enough in there to be able to, implement our draft work plan, at least. And then we can adjust, but I think that's the idea.
And so that 50K is available for, when you say this fiscal cycle, what does that
So
mean?
it's available now.
Yeah.
Until June next year.
But again, we should look at that as if we move forward with one of the third-party vendors. The recommendation one, that's probably gonna get eaten up depending on which one you go with, for how big they cast the net. Cause I think the commission or the subcommittee at least probably understands is that really what we are paying for is them to do the outreach components. That's because they're able to leverage of how they're connecting the people to the rebates and everything. And that's how they really are getting paid for that component of their work. And so, I mean, it's just kind of the money in, money out, kind of connecting people and the service and everything. So, we shouldn't spend those dollars if we're anticipating trying to use a vendor for the second half of the fiscal year.
Okay, any questions? Okay. Next discussion item, is a continuation of the, EV fair 2025, and obviously, I don't know if we need to discuss it, because it was one of the recommendations in the electrification. And we kind of voted on it. Obviously, there's a lot to figure out there, but that's the subcommittee's job.
I mean, all I can say is I spoke with Suresh yesterday from Greentown, who's trying to see if they can make a independent event, and because of the summer, he didn't really try to reach out, so he's hoping to start reaching out to other organizations that might partner this month. They might be able to meet next month, and then they might have a decision by October in terms of whether that's feasible or not. So that's just something to keep a lookout.
Yeah,
for.
do you get a sense on whether, which way they're leaning?
It's impossible to say right now because they haven't reached out to other organizations.
I had a soft discussion with Lava on partnering to do the EV, or the destination electric, and they seemed interested. But I haven't had.
Yeah, and then I do recall from 2 months ago that there is a guy who will do most of the heavy lifting for like 10K. Again, that's off a total rough number, but at least that was the ballpark. He would line up all the vendors and the booths. Obviously, the city would have to support some of that, but if we think about that 50,000, obviously a lot of it will be electrification outreach, but that might be one way to spend 20% of it is to support EV. Again, that's not a hard quote. I can get you the guy. I forget, could look through my notes and figure out who it was if you guys wanted to look at that as part of your EV fair recommendation.
I know that. What I keep on hearing.
Yeah, I knew a guy.
But I think that should be probably part of the discussion with Carl, because Carl has been leading all the work on the electrification fair or EV fair. So that's we as a subcommittee, we're happy to. We can't actually talk to Carl as a subcommittee.
No, that's what.
So it has to be independent.
So who owns this now? The subcommittee
I think it's-
or Carl?
I think it's separate, two separate.
Okay.
It can be included in the outreach campaign or the outreach strategy, but we've been talking about it separately, so.
Okay. So then,
pretty big.
yeah, so then, I think the feeling is we still wanna continue the EV or, destination electric. But we still don't have a solution to who's going to do some of the heavy lifting, right?
So we're looking for partners who would take it all on or who would partner with the city,
The,
either or both.
the current thing being pursued is, are there other organizations that would want to partner with Greentown to be able to take on the bulk of the organizing necessary for this event so that it can continue without needing as much staff time?
Yeah. That's the
To
idea.
summarize, the city, regardless of what is decided, will offer what we put in the staff report in June. And the organizations can take those items as well if they would like, but those are what we're offering.
It was the equivalent of like 40, 50 hours, I think, if I remember. I can look back, but it was something like, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
But it
But
was
we
based
can't do
on
it.
the destination electric,
Yeah.
it was based on the destination electric model.
Yep.
Because all the marketing has been done, you just need to update all those marketing materials and stuff.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on that front? Okay.
Not reading that.
Moving on, commissioner reports and comments, commission meeting, report out. I have a list. So I guess that, since the last meeting, which we kind of punted on a bunch, so starting, I guess that would have been June 11th. Lou,
I wasn't. Oh, I reported last
oh,
time.
did you report last time? Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
reported last time, yeah. We have our meeting on the
Yeah.
June 13th.
Okay, you're right, you did, sorry. June 24th was Laura. Do you have a
Oh,
report?
I do not have a report. Sorry, I did not have that on my calendar.
No problem. July 9th was Carl?
Yes, so I have a lot of backstory to this one. I saw in the newspaper that this was gonna be largely about the Hillview Dog Park area that was being introduced to, this downtown nearby here. And so I looked up the Parks and Rec meeting that discussed this ahead of time so that I could, be informed about what was happening. And, there was some confusion that started there for me and for, seems like, many people where, early in the presentation, it's shown that there is a large tree over where this park would be, and then the later diagrams show it without there. And there's a comment from, during that presentation that, oh, no trees will get taken out, but there wasn't much discussion in there about why. The other thing about this dog park that was a hot button issue at the council meeting and at the Parks and Rec meeting is the use of synthetic turf, artificial turf. And then on top of this, because this is going over where parking lot is currently, it's been bundled with this that there'd be an expansion of parking on other parts of this downtown area. So I submitted a public comment via email discussing one, concern of trees, because it just seemed like there was a threat there. The concerns over parking and then concerns over synthetic turf. So in the council meeting, it was discussed that tree that appears on Google Maps is not there. It was already removed. There are still concerns, and it was brought up at the Parks and Rec meeting that there's some apricot trees that could be harmed. And I still think the parking that is being discussed of being put in is, near trees. So even if they're not directly taking out the tree, you're still harming the roots of the tree potentially. So there are still concerns, but generally, council had to fight back with this idea that trees are being specifically removed for the park. So synthetic turf discussion is quite nuanced because of private interest in terms of who they're going to hire to do this. There was a discussion about really the quality of synthetic turf. Supposedly it's addressing some of the general concerns that people have in terms of rubber infills, in terms of what people tend to think of as synthetic turf. But nor the parks meeting nor this meeting can we really get into the details of what's happening there. And generally, in my estimation, there's very little discussion about the possibility of native plants. You can think of it as an improvement because it seems somewhat natural over parking lot, but it's just The potential for a native area wasn't really discussed. The parks meeting talked about concern over bees stinging dogs, but not thinking about the larger concerns of having area that is basically, you know, dead space for insects, not really anything to forage for animals. So those are some of the high level environmental concerns that I had coming out of that. I spoke with Mayor Weinberg before this to learn about that. The tree apparently was, you know, very diseased, that had gotten removed, but you know, I think it clearly showed to me that there is more communication to be done to avoid these sort of missteps in the future, miscommunications with the public, so that people don't, you know, look misinformed because of this one confusion that occurred. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
If it's okay with the chair, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So there are a lot of reasons to support the dog park, and there are a lot of reasons to oppose the dog park. One of the reasons that was going around to oppose the dog park was that it's going to take out the whole project will remove 6 trees. That was never true. Whoever started that, I know who started it, but it sometimes people get very frustrated or they get very excited in their support or opposition to a project, and things get said that are not accurate. So the removal of the 6 trees was never accurate. I'm sure most of you remember, or all of you remember, there was an absolutely gigantic, beautiful oak tree next to the Bus Barn Theater. It was enormous. It gave a huge amount of shade over that mulchy area, kind of in between the bus barn and the little parking lot and the sports field. When we had the storms, I don't think it was this year, I guess it was 2023. A significant portion of that tree fell down on the Bus Barn Theater. Fortunately, there was not any damage to it. Nobody got hurt. That's most important, right? And there was not significant damage to the theater either. But the city did call an arborist out, and the arborist said that the tree posed a danger and it could not be saved. Now that tree was very old. It's my understanding that was beyond its normal lifetime significantly. When those types of trees begin to get older and diseased, they sort of hollow out in the middle. And the tree was being filled with tar and bricks, things like that, to give it stability. And it simply had gone past the time where we were able to save the tree with that method. So that's why the tree was ultimately removed. We had an arborist report, and the last tricks that we were using to try to save that type of a tree were no longer working. I don't want to send this to me yet, but there's a similar tree kind of on Los Santos Avenue as you're going from downtown. You have to, there's a little jut that you have to take because there's a big tree. On Fremont Avenue near the Grant Park neighborhood, there's also a couple of trees like that. It would not surprise me if those trees are sooner rather than later going to kind of have to reach the same fate. But nothing was removed for a dog park. Nothing was removed for parking. That's the story of the trees.
Good. I don't know if we can comment on that.
Clarification on the turf, would they decide to move forward with
Well,
turf or not?
the council and the Parks Commission supported the synthetic turf, but I think there's still just a lot of confusion about what exactly this product is, and I understand there's policies around not being able to disclose yet exactly what that is, so.
Now they don't know what they're going to recommend you.
Yeah,
What we are told is that synthetic turf has come a long way, and a lot of the problems and disadvantages have been addressed. But because they don't know what it is they actually want to use, they couldn't answer any specific questions. Ultimately, it came down to you either have synthetic turf or you have dirt or decomposed granite or something like that, because natural turf simply will not survive in an environment where dogs are active and they're doing their business on the lawn. And we've seen that in the dog park, the temporary dog park we have here and the one at Mitchell Park. So that's why the decision was made to at least move forward right now with planning for some kind of artificial turf. But the final plans have not come back to the council. They are gonna come back to the council. And at that point, we will know exactly what is being proposed. And there will be an opportunity for the council if we decide we don't have natural turf to explore their options and give other direction. But for the time being, staff and the consultant are moving forward with plans that will include some type of an artificial turf, but we don't know exactly what the characteristics and properties of the turf.
There are other ground covers that are dog friendly or that can survive dog feed.
Yeah, I should hope we don't go for artificial turf because that's a environmental hazard, like microplastic, shedding of microplastic, whatever they run, it's just like it's gonna be.
You have to spray chemicals and it burns the dog's paw.
It's not good for the dog either.
We were told that what they're planning on using does not need to have any special chemicals. It just gets washed down with water. Those specific questions were asked. And I'm only telling you the answers that we were given. This is not something I'm confident. It's on my radar. I'm sure it's on my colleagues' radars. And whether or not you talk about it as a commission, if individually you want to write letters or meet with council members and let us know what your thoughts are, what you know about artificial turf, I think that would be useful.
Sounds great. Okay.
Well, it's been dragging on forever.
John, can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
I think we have some challenges following up with council reports of the way we
Well,
do
we're gonna
it.
read out the next,
Right, exactly, because I think that's important. Maybe we can have that also in the packet every time we can have the same.
the next three.
Yeah,
Next three.
right.
So just to remind,
Useful for all of us.
yeah, the next one is August 27th. It is Dawn. September 10th is Bruno. And September 24th is me. So I'll try to remember that. But, those are the next three reports. And we'll have a meeting in between them. We can update the ones. Okay, moving on, ad hoc committee reports, single-use plastics is, Bruce?
There's nothing to report, but yeah, it would be dominated.
Nothing new?
We, so Isabel, our summer intern has been working on outreach for single-use plastics, as we mentioned several times at meetings. So Isabel's here today and will present for us.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief, like 5 minutes. Let me get up there.
Yeah.
I can send it to you again if you need. Well, Tanya gets that set up. I'll just introduce myself. I'm Isabel Thiefalt. I'm one of the 2 sustainability interns from this summer. I'm a current senior at the University of Michigan, but I'm from Menlo Park, so pretty nearby. I'm studying sustainable development and international relations, so it's kind of right up my alley. But I've actually never worked at a city government before, so very much a learning experience. Perfect. Yeah, so I'm just gonna get into what I've been doing this summer, keep it pretty brief. So this summer I've been working with the single-use plastic foodware ordinance and the plastic bag ordinance. My main goal is pretty much just telling people what's happening. So I've been going up to businesses, giving them informational materials, answering their questions, and gathering feedback. The goal is generally to make sure that everyone knows that there are changes coming and seeing what sort of feedback they have for us, seeing if we need to make any sort of exceptions in the single-use plastic foodware ordinance, because that's still in the works. Yeah, pretty much just spreading info. So far, I've talked with about 110 out of 120 food selling businesses in Los Altos. There's a couple that couldn't get to because they open after my working hours are done. And then I also did some outreach with the public at the farmers market and talked about 40 residents / farmers market attendees. All right, next slide, please. Just a quick look. I actually have a few of these here. I made a little informational packet, just to kind of distribute to businesses, if you guys want to look. I apologize, these ones are accidentally printed single page instead of double page, and then there was example of that. But if you guys want to take a look at this, just see what people have been seeing kind of on the business side of things. And if you guys want to take any of these home, feel free. But yeah, this is just contains some summary sheets of the ordinances themselves, a couple useful visuals. Nothing too crazy, but basically all the information that businesses need to know is in here. I'll let you do that. Yeah. So far, so I've been working on this for about a month and a half, 2 months. These are kind of my main takeaways. General gist of it is both for like residents and businesses, people are pro sustainability but anti-cost. Kind of an unsurprising fact. I think it's kind of what we knew going into this. The other main concerns here are kind of the functionality of new fiberware instead of, you know, the regular plastic that they've been using. But this is something that I've been addressing as I talk to people individually, saying, I promise you there are like pretty good options for fiberware that fill pretty much every need that we have across the city. And if not, there's ways to work around it. And we're also still drafting this ordinance, so there's potential for exceptions in there. Other key takeaway is that people are afraid of change. Kind of happens. If you're a business, you have your own practices. You don't necessarily love change, but luckily most businesses have actually been pretty positively responding to this outreach. I think I've only had small number of businesses who were upset about this at all, but it wasn't because of the environmental aspect. It was mostly just because they have their way of doing things and they're not super excited to change it. But yeah, that's the general gist of it. The public is also pretty pro-environmental changes, but anti-costs. But so far it looks like the changes we're making here should hopefully save restaurants some money. And I think that is about all I have. I'll say also about 75% of the people who I talked to at the farmer's market did acknowledge that plastic was an issue. And I think most of the business owners I talked to as well knew this. So far pretty good reception. I think, yeah, that's it. So if you guys have any questions, I'd love to answer.
I got one actually.
Yeah, of course.
Out of the 10 you talked to, how many are already doing this?
So a lot of restaurants are already using PLA, so the kind of compostable plastic materials, which are, show you a picture. The things that we're actually trying to phase out because they're compostable, but only in very specific settings. So we want this sort of thing, but not picture six. Yeah. So, or actually, if you go, I love a good visual. So if you go to the, oh, never mind, I don't have a picture. But
You still have tomorrow.
yeah, I still have tomorrow. I can change it. So PLA are those kind of clear, like plastic looking things that look biodegradable because they're labeled as such, can't actually be biodegraded. A lot of places already use that, and a lot of places are also talking about like, oh, this plastic container is recyclable. Why is that not good enough? But for the places that are already trying to be environmentally friendly using PLA or using recyclable stuff, they're pretty open to these changes so far. They were just kind of asking the question of why isn't this good enough anymore?
So how many of just, I'm sorry, if you don't have the number.
Oh, yeah. Good question. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I would guesstimate maybe at least a third, maybe a little less. I know, like if you go to downtown and just look around, you'll see a lot of it.
And then, do you know any of those using fiberware instead of the compostable PLA?
Some folks are already doing it, especially like if you see the compostable, like hot coffee cups, for example. You'll see those around. I think you'll see kind of the, like these kind of cardboard fiberware based to-go containers, but I haven't been keeping specific track of who uses what at this point. It's a good question though.
Coffee cups, did you see anyone using fiberware lids?
Not to my recollection, most people are either using kind of this sort, yeah, with a plastic lid, or they're just using kind of the regular plastic lined coffee cups.
Like the straws, for example, a lot of them are still using plastic straws, yeah.
Yeah, I have heard some feedback where people started using plastic straws and then went back to non-plastic straws, but there are a surprising number of good plastic straw alternatives. If you ever been to Boba Guy, they have, I think, sugar cane or bamboo straws that very much so hold up. Yeah.
So most of your outreach was direct to businesses or farmers market? Was there any, like presentations?
Yeah, so Tanya made kind of a YouTube video info session, that's been posted online for a while. I also kind of did an initial email blast, just kind of saying, hey, this is the information you might need, but there's gonna be someone coming around to talk to you, me. But yeah, the majority of it has just been me going into restaurants, asking for a manager or an owner, and chatting with them.
And so you feel like now at least most of the businesses are educated what's coming down the pipe?
I believe so, yeah. I think even the places where like they were in the middle of something, in the middle of prep, rush, whatever, they still got the packet. They still have the chance to like ask me questions or ask questions later. If there's ways to contact in that packet.
And your sense is that it's pretty positive, the reception is,
Yeah.
they're okay with that.
Yeah, the majority of people responded either neutrally, just saying, okay, thanks, I'll take a look at this. Or, you know, we had actually a couple of restaurants who were very enthusiastic about this. It was Cafe Vitale down on Fremont.
Yeah.
I was talking to the owner there. He was super ecstatic about this. Talked about like really wanting to cut back on his plastic. I think it was Arin downtown, the Indian restaurant. We had a discussion for like 10 minutes about how when he was younger, no one used to use plastic bags, and he's excited for these changes. So definitely some pro restaurants.
So I think, you know, I don't know, that could be useful if you have a few restaurants that are already using what we want them to use, fiberware and so on, and no plastic at all. Maybe have some case studies that you can share with the other ones, because I think in terms of vendors and all that stuff, that could be, you know, interesting to share that knowledge for those that have done it already. It's gonna make it easier for the other ones that are not doing that yet, and they have different vendors using plastic stuff. So actually suggestion in some case studies.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and I just want to make sure we're not having discussion. We've been having a lot of discussions. We're not supposed to today. So, that we, in our June info sessions that, Commissioner Van Rees and Commissioner Whedon did, we talked about case studies in the info sessions, and we do have those on hand. There's a lot of those through,
Everything disposable.
yeah.
Yes.
So.
And San Mateo County has also passed these laws, and they've been passed for a good 2-3 years now. So there's a lot of places over there that are already doing it. And I was looking online doing some research about this. I even saw like a reusable boba cup guide, because you know, it's the Bay Area. Yeah, any other questions?
Were there any categories of most resistance? I mean, it sounded like overall positive, but just anything to?
Yeah, I think it really boils down to people kind of have their way, what most restaurants are using right now. I'm assuming they believe works, that's why they're using it. So people were a little bit worried about incurred costs, or, you know, having really specific items that have specific needs. Like I talked to Amber India down on like off El Camino really. And they were talking about having hot gravy-based sauces and how that could be an issue. But one of the provisions in this is, you know, you're allowed to use a tin container with a fiber-based lid. So that could be an option for them as well. But we're also looking into alternatives. Yeah, mostly just change. People worried about costs, but most of the costs are pretty relevant and comparable to the current kind of disposable costs. Yeah. All right, anybody else? In the back of the room, if you guys have questions. I know this is what I've been doing for the last few months, so if I'm talking faster, send an anything over y'all's head. I'm so happy to explain.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great.
Thank you.
That's great.
And I just want to say that I've truly enjoyed working with Isabel.
So it is your second to last day, is that?
Yes, I'm done tomorrow. Yeah.
To restaurant owners.
Yeah.
And also I think
Antisocial now.
for next steps, as the subcommittee will meet, and we will kind of I'll, you know, give more information on what we want to feedback, but it would be now going forward and writing and drafting up finishing up the draft ordinance. So hopefully by next meeting we'll have something to share.
If you guys don't feel like keeping these papers, I'll keep them. We can probably give them to somebody else, but if you want to, absolutely do it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I can keep this, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's also all on the website.
Yes, it's online. And I did just discover today that the QR code on this page, expired. So I'm gonna go fix that tomorrow. Yeah. They want me to pay $15 a year.
Excellent. All right, next item was building electrification. I think we got an update there. Yep. And dark skies, bird safety, not much to update other than we did attend the farmer's market and attempted to do outreach. I think Champagne can give her own opinion, but my opinion was it wasn't tremendously effective.
Yeah.
And for a number of reasons, but number one is we obviously hadn't, it was short notice and we hadn't really invested much in terms of the booth and the graphics and whatever else you would do if you were really trying to do outreach on a regular basis there. We didn't have, we did actually get some handouts and things done, but people don't really want those when they're going, our sense, at least my sense is they didn't really want to engage on that topic at a farmer's market, or any really, for lack of a better term, political topic. So engaging people was tough. I don't know if the other intern had any feedback. He was trying to get answers to a survey. So he was there with us.
That's right. He
And,
has to approach his friends,
yes,
and he's not even his friends are interested.
he was a great,
Yeah.
great guy. And he was very outgoing and aggressive, and I think had trouble getting engagement as well. So I think my takeaway was we have to really think about that vehicle if we're going to use it. The other key point is I think only about half to 2/3 of the people are actually from Los Altos at a farmer's market.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah, many of them are not town.
they're not actually citizens, so you're gonna waste about a third to half your time anyway, maybe. So that was our quick assessment on that. We did the outreach, marginally effective, and we have to really think about how to make it effective if we're gonna use that. Then the other thing, we are waiting for the ordinance. I guess there was some feedback. We'd love to see it if we can. And hopefully, do you know when we'll have the ordinance ready to review?
I need to consult with the city attorney, so the city has received some interesting comments from legal of outside counsels. So we need to make sure that we're protecting the city from any legal challenges moving forward with the ordinance. And I will say though, however, your guys' outreach, you might not feel that it was effective. However, myself and the deputy director received 3 different phone calls of complaints of other people for dark skies. So actually, I do think it was effective. It just might not be initial immediate feedback because we had to do some damage control to say that the ordinance is not in effect yet. And the only way they would have had it is because they used your guys' QR code or the code to get to the website because they had no idea other than that. And so they also told us that they saw it done at the farmer's market. So it to some degree is working to the people that aren't necessarily the ones that are getting reached for other things. So I will say, I think there's certain benefits.
Yeah, you had 3 calls, anti-dark sky?
No complaining about their neighbors not being compliant with the ordinance.
Oh.
That exists.
Okay, yeah, it's their neighbor's night.
Yes.
Okay, but I think I did talk to 3 people, you know. They all for it. Nobody was opposing.
That, there was a lot of support of the people who did engage, but I think that might be typical. That's kind of. So that's our update. Staff updates? No? Future agenda items? We have 3 still on here, SVCE, Cal Water, and what we are calling general outreach, which I think we are going to discuss. The topic there is how we're going to talk to the committee about and I think that should be on the next meeting, if we can put it on the agenda for the next meeting. Any other topics anybody wants to add?
I would like to invite the Greentown interns who made a presentation on farm to table. It was more a presentation about the orchard. So I'd like to invite them to just give a 5-minute update on their learning.
Any high school returns?
They went back to school, but they're local.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I
It's a
mentioned, I
finite
promised them
six-week
there.
Program and then
I promised
experiences,
them
they
when I was
disappear
there
after
that
they stop getting paid.
Yeah, yeah. So we can ask them if they wanna come and give a presentation, because that was one of their things they were. I wish we had an opportunity like this, other set of interns to spread the word of the word.
Yeah, they
So
were
if they wanna come, they're,
especially if they want to
I'd
bring
like to invite them. Yes, yes, and if they bring the apricot. The goodies. So it doesn't,
Any other new items, that we don't have listed that we want to get on either, one of the future meetings, because we have to have it here? No?
Not right now.
Okay.
Okay, so does everyone, do all commissioners agree for the, Greentown interns to come back and present on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
if they're able to.
If there. Okay. I think that's it. Meeting is adjourned. Okay, thank you.